You are lying on your back in the dark. Your chest is tight. Your mind is racing through problems that haven't happened yet and probably never will. Your heart is pounding for no reason you can name. This is anxiety, and for roughly 300,000 years of human existence, it wasn't a malfunction. It was a feature. Modern psychiatry treats anxiety and depression as things that went wrong inside your brain. Chemical imbalances, genetic defects, broken wiring, but a growing number of researchers argue the opposite. These feelings didn't break into your biology from somewhere outside. They were installed on purpose. They kept you alive. And the reason they feel so unbearable now is not because something is wrong with you. It's because something is wrong with the world you're living in. In 2019, evolutionary psychiatrist Randolph Ness published a book called Good Reasons for Bad Feelings. His central argument was radical and simple. Anxiety, sadness, low mood, even rage, these are not bugs in your operating system. They are defensive programs that evolved over millions of years because they gave your ancestors a survival edge. A hunter who felt no anxiety about a rustling bush got eaten. A mother who felt no sadness after losing a child stopped investing in the next one. Your ancestors who felt nothing didn't become your ancestors. You inherited every single one of these feelings on purpose. But here's the part that changes everything. In the environment where these emotions evolved, they came with built-in repair systems. Your ancestors didn't just suffer through anxiety and despair. They had ways of processing it, containing it, and moving through it. We've lost almost every single one. Start with the most basic fact. No ancient human was ever truly alone with their thoughts the way you are right now. The kind of loneliness that sits in your chest like a stone, the slow, grinding isolation of a modern life, was essentially impossible. You lived in a band of 30 to 50 people. You slept touching someone else every single night. You foraged in pairs. You ate in groups. You were never more than arm's length from another human being for your entire life. The concept of being alone in a room had not been invented yet. Robin Dunbar, the British anthropologist who developed the social brain hypothesis, spent decades studying the relationship between social bonding and brain chemistry. What he found was clear. Physical touch, shared laughter, synchronized movement, singing together, dancing together, even just sitting quietly in a group, triggers the release of endorphins. These are your body's natural painkillers and mood regulators. They reduce pain, lower stress, and create a feeling of warmth and safety. Your ancestors received a steady drip of these chemicals every single day without trying. They got them from grooming, from huddling around a fire, from holding each other's children, from walking side by side. You, by contrast, have to schedule a gym class or pay for a massage to get a fraction of the same neurochemical effect. Now consider what happened when someone in your ancestral group actually broke down. Not just a difficult day, but a genuine collapse. Someone who stopped eating. Someone who could not get out of bed. Someone who screamed at things no one else could see. There is direct archaeological evidence that ancient humans took extraordinary care of their most vulnerable members. The most famous case comes from Shanidar Cave in modern-day Iraq. In 1957, archaeologist Ralph Solke excavated the remains of a Neanderthal male known to researchers as Shanidar I. This individual had suffered catastrophic injuries. His right arm had been amputated or had withered away entirely. He was blind in his left eye due to a healed skull fracture that almost certainly caused brain damage. He walked with a severe limp. By any measure, he could not have survived alone, but someone in his group fed him. Someone carried him. Someone protected him from predators long enough for his bones to heal. He lived for years beyond his injuries. He was buried with care when he finally died. This was not mere charity. Anthropologist Jonathan Turner argues that empathy and caregiving behaviors evolved in humans specifically because groups that abandoned their sick and disabled members lost critical knowledge, specialized skills, and the social trust that held the band together. Keeping your broken members alive was not sentiment, it was strategy. The group stayed stronger when no one was left behind. But what about damage you could not see? What did ancient humans do when someone was suffering not from a wound or a broken bone, but from something invisible, a mind that had turned against itself? One of the oldest surgical procedures ever discovered is trepanation. This is the practice of drilling, scraping, or cutting a hole into a living person's skull while they are still alive. It sounds barbaric, but it has been found on every inhabited continent, with the oldest confirmed examples dating back at least 7,000 years, and some disputed evidence pushing much further. And the most remarkable detail is this: most patients survived. The skulls show smooth, healed bone growing back around the edges of the hole. These people lived for months, sometimes years, after someone cut into their heads. For centuries, researchers assumed trepanation was only used to treat head injuries, to relieve pressure after a blow. But archaeologists have found trepanned skulls with zero evidence of physical trauma. No fracture, no impact mark, just a deliberate, careful hole in an otherwise healthy skull. The leading alternative explanation is that trepanation was performed on people suffering from severe psychological distress. Across dozens of unconnected cultures, from ancient Peru to prehistoric France to Neolithic Turkey, the belief was the same. Mental illness was caused by trapped spirits or dark forces inside the skull. Cutting a hole let them escape. The intent was spiritual. But the actual neurological effect was real. Reducing intracranial pressure, altering blood flow to the brain, this could genuinely ease symptoms of seizures, extreme headaches, and possibly certain forms of psychosis. Ancient humans stumbled onto a crude form of neurosurgery and dressed it in the only language they had. Now let's reconstruct what daily emotional maintenance looked like. Not crisis care, the everyday kind, the kind that prevented the breakdown from ever happening. Among the Jew/Honsi people of the Kalahari Desert, one of the oldest continuous cultures on Earth, a healing dance has been practiced for thousands of years, possibly tens of thousands. Anthropologist Richard Lee, who lived with the Jew/Honsi for decades, described it in vivid detail. When someone in the community is suffering, physically, emotionally, or in ways that don't fit neatly into either category, the group gathers at night around a fire. The women begin singing and clapping a specific, driving rhythm. The men rise and dance in a circle, slowly at first, then faster and harder. As the music intensifies, some of the dancers enter a trance state. Their bodies tremble. Their eyes lose focus. In this state, the healers believe they can reach into the body of the suffering person and draw out what they call star sickness, an illness they attribute to the energy of the dead. This sounds like superstition, but neuroscientists studying these trances have documented something real happening in the body. The rhythmic music, the physical exhaustion, the intense communal focus, all of it triggers a massive release of endorphins and serotonin in both the dancers and the person being treated. The body is flooded with the exact same chemicals that modern antidepressants attempt to regulate artificially. The medium is different. The mechanism is the same. Polly Wiesner, an anthropologist who spent years studying the Jew/Honsi, found that their nighttime storytelling sessions around the fire served a parallel function. During the day, conversations were practical, food, logistics, gossip about who was doing what. But after dark around the firelight, the tone shifted entirely. Stories were told about ancestors, about loss, about deep fears and old griefs. Emotions that were too heavy for daylight were spoken aloud in the warmth and safety of the group. Wiesner described this as the divide between daytime talk and nighttime talk. Daytime is for survival. Nighttime is for the things you cannot carry alone. The critical word here is witnessed. In your ancestral world, no one suffered in silence. Pain was communal. Fear was spoken. Grief was shared among 40 people who knew your name and had known you since the day you were born. The healing was not done to you by a professional you met last month. It was done with you by everyone you had ever loved. Now look at what happens instead. You sit in a waiting room by yourself. You fill out a form rating your sadness on a scale from 1 to 10. You talk to a stranger for 50 minutes once a week, and then you drive home to an empty apartment. This is not an attack on modern therapy. It works. It saves lives. But it is operating inside a system that stripped away every structural foundation that once made human mental health possible in the first place. The therapist is the replacement for a world that used to do this automatically. The agricultural revolution, roughly 10,000 years ago, did something nobody anticipated. It made humans dramatically sicker, not just physically, but mentally. When people settled into permanent villages, then towns, then cities, they gained grain stores and walls and roofs. But they lost the constant social contact of the band. They lost the daily physical movement that regulated their brain chemistry. They lost the rhythms, the campfire, the communal sleep, the shared labor, the night stories, that had kept their nervous systems regulated for hundreds of thousands of years. Archaeological evidence from early agricultural settlements shows a sharp increase in skeletal markers of chronic stress. More malnutrition, more infection, more spinal deformities from grinding grain, and critically, a shift in burial patterns. Isolated burials appear, people interred alone, sometimes far from the group, sometimes in postures that suggest fear or exclusion. The beginnings of social isolation, the beginnings of stigma. Randolph Ness calls this an evolutionary mismatch. Your brain is running ancient software on modern hardware. The threat detection system that kept your ancestors alive on a dangerous savanna is now firing at 3 in the morning because of a Slack notification. The grief response that once activated inside a circle of 40 people who loved you is now playing out alone, silently, in front of a screen. And here is what's genuinely important to understand. You are not more anxious than your ancestors were. You are not more broken. You are not weaker. You are experiencing the exact same signals they experienced, the same tightness in the chest, the same racing thoughts, the same crushing weight of sadness. But they had an entire social architecture designed to catch those signals when they fired. They had the fire. They had the dance. They had the group. You have a phone and a lease on an apartment where the walls are thin enough to hear your neighbor, but not thin enough to know their name. So the next time you are lying on your back in the dark, your chest tight, your mind spinning through futures that may never arrive, understand this. You are not malfunctioning. You are a perfectly ancient system, running exactly as designed in a world that has removed every single thing your biology expects to find when the alarm goes off. The signal is not the problem. The silence that answers it is.